Hi, I'm Sean Dunn, and welcome to Origin to Ambition, the Entrepreneur's Journey podcast. In this episode, I speak with John Mapleston, co-founder and partner of TM Collins, a law firm with offices in Melbourne and on the Gold Coast. John takes us through the decision to become self-employed and to open his own firm along with Hamish Thomas, and how they decided to solve two common problems that they saw in the legal marketplace. John takes us through his passion for teamwork and assisting his clients to resolve matters quickly and with minimal fuss. So I think you'll find some really good lessons here for professional services entrepreneurship, and I invite you to please listen on. Welcome to Origin to Ambition, the show where we explore the small business entrepreneur's journey in business. I'm your host, Sean Dunn. Let's get into it. Hello, John Mapleston. Thanks for joining me on Origin to Ambition, the Entrepreneur's Journey podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
So getting into it, do you mind taking us through, first of all, tell us about your business, your current business, the name, how many staff, what you do, all of those sort of things, and then we'll get into a bit of background.
No worries, Sean. So I'm a commercial lawyer. I am one of the co-founders and directors of TM Collins Law. We are a almost full-service law firm with offices in Melbourne and in the Gold Coast. So we cover the areas of commercial law, commercial litigation and insolvency, property law, both litigation and property transactions, everything in that space from your basic conveyance to your complicated subdivisions for developers. We have a family law and a wills and estates team, and we're slowly getting into employment law as well. So our team is about 15. We've got about 9 lawyers, and then the rest of the staff are a mixture of paralegals, conveyancers, and administrative and finance.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, awesome. That's good. Do you want to take us back? So before commencing TM Collins, let's go way back. Did you ever set out to start a business and become effectively an entrepreneur? Was that always the goal? Take us back. Go back to even your school days. Was it always something you wanted to do, or was it sort of law first?
I think it was law first, but once I got into law, I knew that self-employment was definitely something that I wanted to do. I just didn't know whether that would look like being a partner in a larger law firm or whether that would be self-employment on my own accord. So, and it was only once I tried working for myself that I've known that this is probably the right path for me.
Like, what inspired you to take the leap, I suppose? Because at the end of the day, people start a business, but maybe don't think about it in terms of saying, well, I'm an entrepreneur. They just start a business doing what they know how to do. Was there a pivotal moment?
Yeah. So myself and my business partner, Hamish Thomas, we had been working together in a national commercial law firm for a number of years, and both of us had worked as solicitors or sort of paralegals before we got admitted for around 8 years at that stage. And we were getting to the point in our legal career where looking forward over the next 5 years, we were both wondering what our next steps would be, whether it would be, okay, are we gunning to try and work at this firm or another firm to go for partnership within a larger business? Do we go in-house or do we try something else? And at the time, it was actually Hamish's idea. He said to me, well, look, what have we got to lose? Why don't we try doing this ourselves? And worst comes to worst, if it doesn't work after 6 months, we can always beg someone else for a job. And yeah. I think that both of our situations, in our life situations, we're in a place where we could sort of take that risk. Neither of us had kids, and we both had a bit of savings where we were probably going to be okay for about 6 months. So I said to him, yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing really stopping us from giving it a go. I personally didn't think I had enough clients at the time to make it work. But I thought, well, there's no better time than now to give it a go. So that's what we did. That was in August 2022, and here we are over 3 years later now. And we haven't had to look for a job.
So, you haven't had to beat for a job. So exactly. So the growth, I'm sort of tracking away from where I was originally going to take this conversation. But so the growth over 3 years, can you take us through that growth, like whether it be just percentage rates or clients or staff or all of the above?
Yeah. So when we started, it was just Hamish and myself. We got a virtual office both in Melbourne and in Queensland. And we were both just working from home, separately from our home offices. And within the first sort of 6 months, it started to get really busy, where we knew we needed to scale up. And so we brought on sort of a first-year lawyer. And
John, sorry, I'll jump in if you don't mind. Apologies for cutting you off there, but when you knew very quickly that you were becoming very busy, what drove that? Like how, not many people can open a business, open the front door, and then suddenly they're busy. Like it doesn't just happen miraculously. What sort of happened for you guys?
Yeah, I think it was just word of mouth from turning over work very quickly for clients and doing it at a price that was much lower than the market rate for lawyers. So what people generally complain about lawyers is, one, they're too bloody expensive, and two, they're really slow at getting back to me. So what we set out to do was to solve those two problems, and charge an affordable rate and provide top-tier client service where we would always get back to our clients quickly. And because of our low overhead structure and because we were effectively starting from nothing, we were able to do that. And as a result of that ethos, the word spread very quickly. And people were referring us to their friends, their colleagues, and it just started to really ramp up very quickly.
So that's interesting. And I'm glad we stopped and talked about that there, because that's probably one of the things that comes out oftentimes when I speak to entrepreneurs. It's about what problem they see and solve. And you've sort of just hit it on the head. If I need I need legal services, full stop, it's expensive and it's slow. And if you can solve those two problems, you've very quickly found yourself very busy and having to scale up. So again, just take me back to the time frame that you realised that you had to scale up. Like, it was fairly quick.
It was within 6 months that we knew it couldn't. Yeah, we knew that it couldn't just be the two of us.
Yeah.
And as I was saying before, with these larger sort of law firms, you find that they've got such enormous overheads, often as a result of incredibly expensive artwork in their offices and the principals paying themselves enormous salary. And at the end of the day, someone's got to pay for that. It's got to be the clients. And the things that we were hearing from clients was that they would be getting bills, and not only would there be time on their invoices from principals, but you'd get time from sort of 3 other lawyers down the rank, as well as the support staff. And then these bills would just get out of control. So I suppose the way that we marketed ourselves to our client is it'll just be the principals that are working on your file at a rate which is much lower than our competitions for the same service, and we can turn it around quickly. Now, we needed to scale up after the 6 months because with more work and as we got more busy, it's harder to provide that same service because there's only so much that one man can do in a day.
Yeah. So your speed of turnaround starts to suffer. And if it hasn't already suffered, it's going to suffer.
Exactly. And you're not able to provide the same level of service that you were before. So, after 6 months, we started hiring, and that's when we sort of got our first physical office. And our first physical office we started we had a client who was in Windsor, who was only using their office 2 days a week, and we were renting it from them, subletting it from them for the other 3 days a week.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So what was it like? Sounds like you were pretty busy straight off the bat. So oftentimes I ask, well, what was it like in the early days? And look, some old hacks like me might say 3 years is still the early days anyway. But like when you very first kicked off, what was it like? Like how did it feel?
It was nerve-wracking, because we didn't know where the files would come from. I do think I got a little bit lucky with being at the right place in the right time, in some regards, because for my own personal practice, when we started, I had another law firm reach out to me who asked if I would be interested in contracting to them. So doing some work for them, splitting the fees on that work. And that was really great at the start because it sort of gave me a supply of work that I could do while I was building up my own practice. So, and they had a lot of work to give me. So, it took a bit of pressure off in terms of trying to develop my own practice. And then slowly as sort of time went on, I think it was after probably 12 months that we really stopped doing any subcontractor work to anyone else. So I would recommend to anyone who's sort of younger and starting in a services industry, it's good if you can find that subcontractor work for someone else while you're developing up your own client base and yeah, sort of a bit of a safety net.
Yeah, that's great advice actually, and it's made me just remember and this is not about me, this is about you. But it's just made me remember I actually did quite a bit of teaching of units in diplomas and graduate diplomas of financial planning and marking assignments and exams for the same. I was sort of doing that when I first started the business. I had a bit of that on and was getting paid for that, and it wasn't going to really fund, my lifestyle, but it was just good to have a bit of an income stream coming through while I started my business with 0 clients when I started to open the office. I didn't have any clients. So I was sort of in a bit of a boat saying, well, this is a great idea, Sean, but how are you going to fund it? So that's great advice, John. If you can have that contract work of some description in your area of expertise or something that you're able to do just to help, keep things ticking over. And
it is appealing to other businesses at times to have someone who's a contractor as well, because, the amount of businesses in the services industry that are short on staff but may not want to commit to a full-time worker.
And have someone as an absolute employee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So would part of your advice be actually make that effort to go out and knock on doors, like not to look for a job, but to look for work or overflow work?
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because what I found is that a lot of my client base actually comes from other lawyers. So I think building.
Can you explain that for listeners who may not understand that? I mean, for example, in my game, it's we do refer across to other financial advisors where the client's not really our niche or target, but it's probably not. It's probably, I'd say, it feels like it's more common in the law almost.
Yeah. So often at times in law, a lawyer will have a conflict of interest and they can't do the work. Or, for example, there'll need to be 2 lawyers on file doing something. So if you've got a family law matter and you've got a agreement between spouses, like a prenuptial agreement, or their relationship's ended and they're agreeing on how to split their property, there'll need to be lawyers for each spouse and they need to be independent from each other. Other sort of times is you might get a situation where a lawyer is acting for, say, a liquidator and then of a company, and then the director of the company goes to that lawyer for advice, and the lawyer will say, well, I can't act for you. I'm acting for the liquidator. Go and see this person. So Yeah, I think it's definitely good when starting, if you've got contacts, to be able to reach out and find out whether they need some assistance for contract work just while you're finding your feet, as long as you make it clear to that person that you're not going to try and steal any of their clients, and that that they can trust you. And also for longer term, just building relationships with people in your own industry for conflicts type work or whatever it might be. Or the other way is also, I've got relationships with other lawyers that don't do some of the areas that we do. So, for example, I've got a very good relationship with Melmark Law, who are a family law firm who you met at the function last week. And often with commercial matters, I'll refer that off to me.
Would there be one, I'm just thought about this while you were speaking, would there also be, though, a little bit of a caution around it that if you've elected that you want to go out and run your own show and be a business owner and an entrepreneur, would there be some sort of threat that if you take too much contract work that you sort of get sidetracked by it?
Yeah, get too comfortable, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see how that could happen, but as long as you don't get too comfortable. And
yes,
as long as you don't get too comfortable and the vision and the goal remains that you want to be running your own business, I think it's okay.
Yeah, got you. What in your business, what drives you to do what you do every day? What's your key driver?
For me, since we've built a team, being there for my team and assisting them and watching them grow and being able to mentor them, that's very rewarding for me. So I'd say that's the number one thing, just getting in the office every day and being there for the team. Obviously assisting clients as well. So, our job is a problem in services industries as a problem solver, and just providing solutions to clients' problems and trying to make their life easier, not harder. Where, often you hear horror stories of lawyers where they go to a lawyer, they spend a lot of money and their problem isn't resolved at all. So from the very first meeting, trying to get to the bottom of the problem and trying to say, how are we going to resolve this in a manner that's economical and the least stressful path for the particular client. And I often say to clients, look, it's against my interest to give you the advice that I don't want you to end up in court, but it's going to be in your best interest if you don't end up in court. So I do everything I can to try and get to the bottom of a matter and resolve it as quickly as possible. So it doesn't have to turn into the most stressful thing in a client's life.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make. I think there is a bit of an issue around many services industries and professions where a problem in the client's mind can be conflated by the service provider almost in an effort to make things seem harder and more difficult than they are, as a way to kind of scare the client into engaging with that person. I'm not just talking about law here. I'm talking about, I've been on the end of it myself with lawyers, with accountants, where, suddenly this issue's kind of, blown up and made to sound more difficult. And, if you've got a problem, you've got a problem. And if it needs fixing, it needs fixing. But I think what you're saying, and I know that this is what we try to do in our business as well, is that, yes, there's a problem, but how do we solve it with minimum stress?
Exactly right. Get to the problems as quickly as possible. See, particularly in disputes, because the dispute matters in law are the ones that can draw out for years. And, sometimes even seeing clients spend over $500,000 in fees. And how do we avoid that? How do we get to the issues very quickly and resolve it? And if it's possible, you resolve it quickly. But sometimes that's not possible, but we do our best.
What does that lead? What's the greatest impact then that you see? What you do and what your firm provides, what's the greatest impact you see on clients and community?
Yeah. So the greatest impact is trying to get clients out of these stressful situations so they can move on with their lives and their businesses themselves. Because often, particularly when you're dealing in disputes, it's going to be the most stressful part of someone's life. And it takes up not just money, but so much time. So trying to get to the bottom of matters so people can focus on what's important to them and what they're good at rather than court proceedings. And then in terms of the other side of things, when we're not dealing with disputes and litigation and we're just talking about general commercial matters, setting things up so clients can build businesses in a way that prevents them from getting into litigation later. So you've got the straight commercial transactional side, which is setting up all of your company documents properly, doing things such as shareholder agreements, business sale agreements, to minimize the risk of a dispute at a later time. And again, that's promoting people getting on with their businesses with at least some certainty that it's less likely there's going to be disputes in the future.
Sort of what I'm hearing as well is that there's one of the things you bring is you remove a mental burden or an emotional burden potentially from a client, because you mentioned stress a few times, especially in disputes. Clearly, if you can reduce that mental stress, that's more than that's more than earning a fee.
Absolutely. There's that. There's there's the worry and the mental stress, but then there's the reality of, you don't do things and you don't set things up properly in the future when inevitably things go wrong in a business. Not for all businesses, but for some businesses, there's a lot less likely that it's going to end up in a court somewhere. The financial burden on a client down the line is much far less when they spend a bit of time and a bit of money setting things up properly at the start.
Yeah, that's an interesting one as well. So even when we talk about advice, so this is not circling onto myself or my business, but when we talk about advice, what I just heard in what you were saying there, and I also appreciate that wasn't a self-serving comment that you just said necessarily, but paying for advice, and I know that it's difficult when you're starting up a business because often all you've got is time and sweat. You don't necessarily have a lot of money available for things, but there is a point where if you're not paying for advice, whether it be legal, accounting, financial, anything else, you are actually potentially setting up a failure effectively because you haven't sort of sought that advice.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I think estate planning is a great example of that. Getting things right in advance of the inevitable place where we're all going one day, to save the burden of your family having to deal with a dispute down the line.
In your career, what's been the value to you of advice for yourself? Now, whether that's a particular advisor, a mentor, peer group, what's been the value to you in terms of tapping into people, advisors and mentors and peer groups and people that you know? What benefit have you gained from that?
Other business owners, particularly ones that have been around a lot longer than me and seen things that I might not have seen before, is really good to pick their brains on certain situations, whether it's tax, whether it's staffing issues, and looking at people who I aspire to be like and seeing if they can sort of become a friend or mentor to me, to assist me in what I'm doing.
When you say somebody that you would aspire to be like, and I think this is really important. I think in entrepreneurship, I think you have to seek out sounding boards, advisors, mentors. I think that's critical. we were just speaking before we started recording that I spoke at a conference on the weekend on the Gold Coast myself, and I watched a keynote presentation at the end, and I learned heaps from that keynote. And I was speaking and presenting at the same conference, but I actually looked at that person and I was like, okay, I've just picked up a whole heap of stuff that I'm going to improve in my presenting skills. I think it's important as an entrepreneur that you have that growth mindset or that, continual learning mindset. Is that sort of what you're thinking when you're looking around at people that have been around longer than you? You're seeking out people for that?
For sure. Generally someone whose business has stood the test of time and who is sort of respected by both clients and by other law firms, lawyers and law firm owners. Yeah.
So is that fair to say that that's what you always strive for then?
Yeah,
yourself?
Absolutely.
Right. Throw you one out of the left field somewhere a little bit. So what do you do outside of your business and outside of your profession that you think you bring into your business and profession?
That's a hard one, John.
You're probably thinking for the last 3 years, all I've done is worry about this business.
Yeah. So I can't really sit here and say that I do anything unique that's sort of outside of work that's different to anything that anyone else is doing. So
it doesn't have to be different.
Look, I think that I've always I've always worked really hard on my personal relationships outside of work and my friendships, and what that's helped me within work is that it's allowed me to start the business. So a lot of my clients come through my extended networks, whether I've met people through school or uni or sporting clubs, or just through friends of friends, whatever it might be. So I think that has definitely assisted me to be where I am today. Just that that's something that I've always, been growing my network, and not even for, I haven't done it. I haven't grown my network, to try and, build business. My philosophy has always been, let's be mates, and if we can do business, then great. But if not, that's fine as well. And I do think people appreciate that, because you never want to be seen as sort of trying to use someone for anything.
Yeah. I actually think now. I'm sure some people would disagree with me when I say what I'm about to say, but I know that I'm actually I would say I'm a terrible networker. And the reason why I say I don't think I'm a good networker, I'm using the term networking in that sense of structured networking, if that makes sense, without mentioning programs or anything like that, because I'm not having a go at those, because they can be very successful for people and people use them. I don't think I'm good at it because I don't like it. It's as simple as that. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. And it's interesting because I think maybe where I connected with you is you've probably just articulated more or less how I feel, which is my networks really come through my relationships and through building friendships with people. And I'm like you, I don't do that with a view of, well, what can I get out of this? But I think it's important that the lesson I suppose we're trying to get to, or I'm trying to get to in what you just said and how I feel about it as well, which I think we have those similar views, is that I think it's important for people in business to focus on relationships, like not just for the networking in terms of what's in it for me, but, if you focus on relationships, and whether that's with friends, colleagues, clients, and build strong relationships, I think you just build a strong business.
Absolutely agree. And I've just found that the more that you do right by people, it just sort of seems like you end up in the right place at the right time, and people think of you, and just keeping in touch with people. and being at the front of people's minds for no other reason than building relationships and often, not always, but often. And it's interesting because with what I'm doing, you never know where the next file's coming from. And sometimes you just can never guess. So I think that there's definitely a place for targeted networking because you can never really guess where your next file is going to come from. I think just the more that you get out there and more that you build those relationships, inevitably it's just going to grow like, a ball rolling down a hill, picking up steam and picking up things along the way.
Yeah, and I think that that's the lesson. If you're setting out in business is to build strong relationships, I think that that's probably the short version of where I was going around and about there. Because if you behave differently when you think there's something in it for you, there's invariably not going to be anything there for you because people know if you're a different person when you want something, if that makes sense.
For sure. And the way that I sort of think about it is most people in business know a lawyer already or know multiple lawyers already. But I think that people like working with me because they know I'm going to be honest. They know I'm not going to overcharge their client. And I'm always happy to have a chat, even if it doesn't involve a fee to me, where I just think of my own when I'm handing out work to other people. I think, is the person I'm referring the person within my network to going to be honest, going to know what they're talking about and not going to rip them off. And yeah, so it all just comes down to being honest, being genuine and not trying to build relationships to get something out of people because I think it's just disingenuous and people see straight through it.
Yeah, that's great. So be authentic and be genuine.
Yeah, exactly right.
I did want to touch on actually, now that I might circle back a fraction because you mentioned, this has just popped into my mind, bear with me. You mentioned that the team's important to you when you go into work. And you also just mentioned sports clubs. So I am going to read into that and say you're a team sport person or have been.
Yeah, I was growing up. And sort of in my later 20s and 30s, been involved in team sports to a lesser extent, in sort of social sports like mixed netball and indoor soccer. But I grew up my whole life playing footy, cricket and tennis. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So you enjoy the team environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good. So take us through, if there was one piece of advice that you could go back to the start, we're only going back 3 years, but is there one thing that you wish you had have done maybe a bit different? Most of us have done this. Is there one piece of advice you would give a new entrepreneur to say, do this when you start? And is there one thing that you wish you had have done better when you started?
So what I would say is that maybe not when you first start, but when you get to the point where you're ready to hire people, I think that it's really important that you spend time getting the hiring decision right. And the reason that I say that is because you hire people because you want to scale up. And if you don't get that right and you get the wrong hire, then that can effectively hamstring you, for the foreseeable future. Because if you can't delegate properly, then why really hire someone in the first place? So I think that that's sort of what I would tell myself, and I'd tell anyone if they're at the stage where they're wanting to grow and scale up, it's got to be the right person. I think that what a lot of new businesses do, including myself, when they're first in the stage of hiring people, they hire people probably at more of a graduate and lower level. I think that's probably the wrong move for a business in its early stages, because the reality of getting someone that doesn't have much experience, they're obviously cheaper, and that's why.
Yeah, I think that's why people do it. Yeah, exactly.
But the reality is, as someone running a startup, you are probably not going to have the time to put in years of training into someone. So, in my view, you're better off in that situation biting the bullet and hiring someone with probably 4 or 5 years experience as your first hire, rather than someone that's straight out of uni or someone who's only got one year experience or something like that.
So you make the investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment, and make a proper investment in it.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And the other thing that I think what I said earlier about, having some kind of consulting or contracting work that you can fall back on, but something that you can sort of choose the amount of hours that you commit to a week, and try and line that up for, say, 10 hours a week or something like that. So you've got a day a week dedicated to that. I think it's very important to have a good accountant and bookkeeper from the very start. So one of the challenges that we had is, within the space of a year, we went from 4 people to more than 10 people. And in that time, we had developed a transactional property law team. Now, that involved hundreds of conveyancing transactions. So we're on top of it now, but that created a lot more work to do in the bookkeeping department, with all the money coming in and going out. And we grew a little bit too quickly in that regard. So I think it's very important to have good systems in place with the right accountant and the right bookkeeper, just because you don't want to be falling behind on that part of your business.
No, and you can't afford to either.
No, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. We took on a client recently, and it's taken probably a good 12 months. We moved that client away from their accountant and to an accountant that we know, because their books were just a complete mess, just all over the shop now, and this client just not having a handle on their business because and I couldn't even read their numbers properly, and I'm used to doing it. And it was just like, the minute we opened the books on our side, we were just like, this is wrong. Like we could tell way, So I think that's great advice, that, have the right advice across those functions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it really, if you don't have those correct systems in place, it really holds your business up from being able to do any kind of financial reporting, profit projections, creating budgets, because you don't know how much money you're making.
Yeah, you've got no idea.
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, very good. So take us through next 5 to 10 years. What's on the horizon for TM Collins and yourself?
Yeah, so I think I think that I'd like to get to the business to we've got enough staff now. I would like to get the staff all to a level where they can really run their files without much supervision. And I can focus. I'll remain on files to a degree, but I can focus on running the business itself a bit more, and developing the relationships and the networking. And so I'm not so heavily on the tools necessarily. And I think the other thing that I'd like to do is, at the moment, we do have a lot of clients that refer us repeat work, but I'd like to target sort of some industries to get us on some panels. So, for example, some panels from lending companies, potentially insurance panels, those sort of things. Just because, I think that we do have a great client base, but at the same time, I suppose sometimes you never really know where the next file's coming from. if without having a locked in contractual panel work. So I'd like to explore the how we get onto these panels and just to have a more solid pipeline of work, really. So and yeah, just try and develop a mature, solid team of people. The other thing I would like to do is to develop other leaders within my business. So, you know, I can go on a holiday or I can take an extended time off and know that everything's going to run smoothly without me.
Well, that's interesting, John, because my mantra in my business and with my clients is to say we're always aiming at getting them to do the three things that we work towards, which is, doing what they want, when they want, with the people they want to do it with. So is that kind of, I'm sort of pushing my own mantra a little bit, but is that what I'm hearing? That's kind of where you'd like it to go, is realistically you want to be a business owner and not necessarily in the trenches. And I think that that's the goal of most entrepreneurs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where I'd like it to go. And I don't think I never want to get to a place, I don't think, where I'm not a lawyer at all.
Understand.
Yeah, I really do enjoy the law work. And I don't think that as a business owner in law, and I think in many services industries, you don't want to take your hands too far off the tools because, I think that then you can potentially run into situations where your staff run off with your business because the business doesn't necessarily need you. Yeah. So, but yeah, it would be nice to be able to go for holidays when I want to and know that everything's going to run okay while I'm not there.
Yeah, this ship's not going to go under just because you're not holding the tiller, so to speak.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. So just to clarify, not necessarily more staff, but sort of getting the team more experienced is sort of what I'm hearing from what you're saying there.
Exactly right. And I mean, if the work is there, I mean, the staffing will just depend on what the demand is for the work. And I think right now with where we're at now, we're in a position where we can take on more work now, where previously we're over capacity. So I just want to get the team as they are now to a point where they're very productive, they're self-sufficient, and it would be good to be in a point where we don't clients that we don't want to deal with, we just don't take on the file, and all of the clients are good paying clients and not ones that muck us around. I mean, that might be a bit of an unrealistic goal because not every client's ever going to be the perfect client, I don't think. But just to develop the client base into more mature, hopefully larger commercial clients.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So I ask this question of everyone that comes on, and it's a very simple question. Is entrepreneurship for everybody?
Definitely not.
I haven't had anyone say yes yet, so there you go.
I think that you have to be really passionate about running a business to want to do entrepreneurship, and that is absolutely not for everyone. Some people just want to go to their job, focus on their job, get paid for what they're doing, and that's completely fine. The job of running a business, you've got to wear so many different hats, from particularly a startup business and starting from nothing. You've got to be everything from being a lawyer to being a HR manager to being a marketing manager to being a payroll manager, and just having to think about so many different things. It does take a lot of energy, and not everyone's interested in that.
Yeah. Fair enough too. Yeah. That's fair enough too. So if I asked you, just looking back on the journey so far with TM Collins, what would be a highlight? What's one of the things you'd be most proud of that you could point to?
I think that being able to give jobs and being able to mentor a lot of other people and seeing other people develop in their own careers is something that I'm really proud of and something that I love doing every day. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, sometimes had clients in really bad positions. So, for example, I had a elderly lady who had sort of signed a guarantee for her daughter's business, and she had a farm, and it was one of these 8-tier lenders who charge these ridiculous, exorbitant interest rates. And she was looking at the sheriff coming from booting her out of her own farm that she'd been in for over 40 years. And I've been able to do work for some people like that on deferred payment arrangements, and then so allowed them to have access to legal services where they don't have to pay me immediately. They're able to pay me at the settlement, and that's allowed her to stay in her farm and reached I think when the lenders were coming after her, they were coming after about $1.3 million, and I got back down to about $450,000, and she's been able to stay in her farm. So being able to do things like that, where I wouldn't necessarily be able to reach those kind of payment relationships if I was working for someone else. That is quite rewarding.
Yeah, good stuff. That's good stuff. So if I could ask you just to sum it up, the entrepreneurial journey for you so far in one sentence, maybe 2 sentences, what would you say? What would you say to that?
I would say that it's something that I absolutely love and I wouldn't change for the world. But it's also a roller coaster, and sometimes it can be a love-hate relationship.
So you have to actually enjoy this. You have to enjoy going on the roller coaster.
Oh yeah, you have to expect that there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be some days you're thinking, why on earth did I do this? My life would just be so much easier if I was just working for someone else, doing my job and going home.
Yes.
But once you get through those days, and you have a bit of clarity, I realise how much I do love it, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Well, I think on that note, John, I think that is a great place for us to wrap up. Get on the roller coaster, enjoy the ride, and enjoy the entrepreneurial journey. John, I want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate you making the time for me today and being on the episode.
Thanks for having me, Sean. I hope that the listeners are able to take at least one thing out of it.
Yeah, well, if you can learn one thing from anything, you've had a win, is what I would say. So, really appreciate it. So, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. And that's all for this episode of Origin to Ambition. Thanks for tuning in. To make sure you don't miss our next conversation, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen in. For more information, you can visit us at dominiumcapital.com.au, and we'll see you next time.